Hello everyone, welcome to this important initiative by the MJF Charitable Foundation to create an awareness about para sports and Paralympics. I'm Gopi Kitnasamy, head of the rehabilitation services at MJF Charitable Foundation, which is the charitable arm of Dilmati. We all are happy and proud about the achievements made at the Paralympic Games in Tokyo. Dinesh Priyantha and Samita Dulan made all Sri Lankans proud by winning the gold and the bronze medals at the Paralympic Games. How many of us know about the para sports or the Paralympic Games? To know more about it, we are honored and privileged to have with us Mr. Priyantha Peiris, who is the Vice President of the National Paralympic Committee, Sri Lanka. He is also the Secretary for Sri Lanka Federation for Rehabilitation of the Disabled, Program Manager, Power Sports, which is a sports mentoring program, Founder President of the Spinal Injuries Association of Sri Lanka, Assigned Trainer, Consultant in Sri Lanka for Handicapped International on Disability Equality, and the Motivation Charitable Trust on Peer Group Training. Hello, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
Sir, what is para sports and what is Paralympic Games?
Yes, para sports means it is the sports or a series of sports activities for persons with disabilities. Is parallel to Olympics. That's the meaning, that's the definition. The definition is parallel to Olympics means Paralympics. So that's why we call Paralympics. So the rules and the regulations, the governing structure, everything is the same. The only difference is that you see that the persons with disabilities get involved or are engaged in para sports, as well as persons with non-disabilities get involved in Olympics.
Right. So you can give us some example of the different type of para sports being played.
Yes, now internationally, worldwide, the International Paralympic Committee, which is the governing body of para sports globally, has 23 summer sports and also 10 to 12 winter sports, different sports disciplines. So whereas in Sri Lanka at the moment, we are engaged or we promote 13 of those summer Paralympic for example, if you which is the most popular and the most famous wheelchair tennis, wheelchair basketball, badminton. Badminton, you have two categories, like wheelchair badminton, standing, and so on. Then swimming, impairments to intellectual disabilities. So there are lots of groups, different groups for swimming. And then shooting. Then we have marathon. We have cycling. We have taekwondo. We have sitting volleyball, and so on.
Right.
So we have 13 sports disciplines which we are promoting at the moment in Sri Lanka.
Right.
So in the IPC, if you might have seen on TV these days,
yes,
there are different games, different sports disciplines which are being competed in the Paralympic Games in Tokyo.
Right. Bosia is also another game which is being played around the world by people with different neuromuscular disabilities, and this is also
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So which is also like MJ Foundation sort of join hands with the National Paralympic Committee, and sort of we are planning to launch that also in Sri Lanka soon.
Yes.
Yes.
Because now there are specific games for specific disabilities. If you take, for example, gold ball is only for the blind. And then if you take Bosia, it's only for athletes with intellectual disabilities. But if you take athletics and swimming, from intellectual disabilities to blind, you have 3 categories, and then different physical impairments such as amputees, congenital, spinal cord injuries, other physical ailments, polio, and so on. So they all can get involved, and then also cerebral palsy, CP.
Yes.
So can get involved in swimming and athletics. But if you then again go back to wheelchair basketball or wheelchair rugby, then it is like limited to like persons with spinal injuries and amputees. So those are some of the examples you can refer.
Great, sir. So there are, like, say, categories according to the type of disabilities, and also the so there are different varieties. So people can select whatever their interest and the type of disability they have, and accordingly sort of train in those sports.
Exactly, because now if you want to get into one of these sports disciplines, if you want to undergo training, so you need to be, first of all, you need to have a passion for the sport. So you need to be interested, and then you need to be eligible.
Exactly.
So eligible means, as you said, your physical requirements, assessment or medical diagnosis says about your eligibility for which sports and which category. So that's how persons with disabilities have been categorized according to their disability and their abilities. Okay. So accordingly they get eligible for particular specific sport. So you can be eligible for one specific sport, but you won't be eligible for some other sports.
Sure.
Like I mentioned a little while ago with some examples.
Right, sir. So like the National Paralympic Committee, where you are the vice president, when was it started? Please let us know about the history of it.
Yes, going back to the history of the National Paralympic Committee, it was originated somewhere in 1992, and then it with the progress of sports and with it evolved during the time. So with time it developed, and then it became the NPC, National Paralympic Committee. Before that, it was named as the National Federation of Sports for the Disabled. But the NPC is the governing body of sports for the disabled in Sri Lanka, which is registered with the Minister of Sports with a gazette notification, and then also affiliated to the IPC, International Paralympic Committee, as its member organization in Sri Lanka. And so we, the NPC, or the National Paralympic Committee, manages, organizes, promotes, and then conducts several sports activities. But we are still called as the National Federation of Sports for the Disabled, or the NFSD, because we also manage and support other sports which are not involved with Paralympics, like, for example, hearing impairments, deaf games, athletics for the deaf, then deaf cricket, blind cricket. Then if you take wheelchair dancing, although it is affiliated with the International Paralympic Committee, it doesn't come under the Paralympic Games.
Right.
And then also you have chess for the blind. Chess for the blind. It's called blind chess. So those games are also being governed by the Paralympic Committee. So we conduct and organize local tournaments for them. So apart from that, our main focus is the para games, the main sports disciplines, Korea. But before that, it goes back to about 1948, where the first disabled sports games were conducted in London, in Stoke Mandeville, with war veterans, and then with time it has been improving. So there had been a few games in the 1960 Olympics, Paralympics as well, but officially it started in 1988. So we got the membership soon after that, and then our first participation at the Paralympics was in Atlanta in 1996. We had a powerlifter there, and then in the year 2000 in the Sydney Games, Sydney Paralympics, we had a swimmer and few others. So that was one Paralympics that we missed the golden opportunity of winning a bronze medal. Slim margin between the third and the fourth place. And then again in 2004, we once again missed an opportunity of winning a bronze, coming very close in the Athens Paralympics. And thereafter we have been competing, and we have been participating with more and more athletes. So it has now increased to about 10 or 12. So this time we had 9 athletes. So to compete at a Paralympic Games is not the easiest as you expect and as you want to compete, because you have a criteria. You need to meet international qualifications, international criteria to take part in any Paralympic Games. So the NPC or the National Paralympic Games, we have a structure. We are governed by a committee, governing board or an executive committee. So with the executive committee, we have about 50 to 55 member sports clubs. So we get the athletes through the sports clubs coming up to the national level. So we have the National Athletic Championships, and then a few years back, we also had national championships for powerlifting, swimming, beach volleyball, marathon, cycling, and so on. But recently we have been having only for athletics. So the National Paralympic Committee is affiliated to several other international organizations as well. One such organization is the Asian Paralympic Committee, and then also INAS is the International Organization for Intellectual Disabilities, and so on. So that's how we get on with our work, through our sports clubs, and then with the executive committee of 15 members managing the NPC, headed by the president.
Definitely, the NPC have come up, done a lot of hard work, and they come up like up to the standard. And now we have won the gold medal and the bronze medals, which is very proud. And even though it like last 2 years were like very difficult times for all of us, even with this all these difficult situations, still we have won the medals, which is a very, very proud thing. And definitely it's all the work done by the NPC. So
it was like a silver lining on a dark cloud.
Exactly, sir. Yeah, so now we had like 9 athletics participating for this year's Paralympics.
Yeah.
What were the sports they were playing? Like we know definitely the javelin was, everybody knew about this javelin, but
Yes,
now
yes.
what are the
Out
other
of the-
sports they were participating?
So out of the 9 athletes, we had 1 female athlete, and 6 of them, including the female athlete, were competing at track and field events, athletics, like the 100 meters, 200 meters, long jump, shot put, and the javelin. So there were 3 athletes doing the javelin. And then apart from that, the other 3 athletes were competing in wheelchair tennis, archery, and rowing. So rowing, it was the very first time that an athlete took part in a Paralympic Games.
Okay. What is the scope of para sports in Sri Lanka? And you have mentioned about the past performance as well. What is the scope of the para sports in Sri Lanka, sir?
Yes, now with the recognition and the awareness we have been receiving or getting since 2012, where we won the first medal at a Paralympic Games. So there have been a lot of opportunities and a lot of scope for the athletes to compete at the very highest level. So there's like little that the NPC or the executive committee can assist the athlete, but the athlete should get a lot of support from his or her sports club to come up the ladder. So you need to start somewhere. So there are no shortcuts in winning a medal at a top level competition such as the Paralympic Games. So there's a lot of scope. So you get a lot of recognition, as you might have seen, because during the last 3 days, the entire media carried the Paralympic medal winning moment as its headlines in all print media, electronic, social media, and so on. So there's with the awareness such as this, there's a lot of scope for the future, but it's a teamwork. It's a teamwork. So athlete is the number one. The focal point is the athlete. So surrounded by different other entities, segments that feed the athlete. So athlete will have to do a lot of hard work. You cannot expect a medal, or you cannot expect to compete at a Paralympic Games just because you won the 3rd place at a local event or national athletic meet and winning a medal, and you cannot expect to take part or compete, participate at a higher competition. So you need to perform at that very highest level. You need to meet that criteria.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, the hard work by Dinesh and Samita and all the others. Like even competing at the Paralympic Games is not an easy. This one, like you need to practice every day to achieve that. Like any other sport.
Definitely.
Yes. So like regarding the disabled and the special needs children, do we have facilities for the development in sports?
So we have a few issues in our infrastructure system, because there again the responsibility lies within the sports club of those children representing. For example, the special education unit of the Ministry of Education can do a lot, and so as the Ministry of Social Services, or rather the Department of Social Services, and their parents. So if you take, if you like answer to your question as what are the facilities we have, we have the human resource. So we need to make use of the human resource to develop oneself. So sometimes we don't use them. We don't use the correct resources to develop, because any athlete who has been achieving at the very highest level, at the pinnacle, and then coming to the top level has come a very hard way. So you need to make use of the facility, and then you need to see how you could get the support of the others.
Yeah. Also, as you said, like we need to build more like sort of infrastructure, like to sort of improve their like training and participation as well.
Definitely,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Are there any other needs and gaps, like in particularly like about their sponsorship or like other support, financial support for them, or like say even to participate or even to get training, like say like even the athletes regarding their they have many challenges, like say even the quality processes, say when we look at those the Paralympic or the international games, the other athletes are like they use very sophisticated processes and even wheelchairs, like particularly for wheelchair races and all. Do we have support for those things in Sri Lanka?
At the very bottom level, we have issues, we have problems to solve. Like now, yesterday I was watching one event by a cerebral palsy or CP athlete at T36 category. F36. F36 means CP standing field event. So he was throwing this shot put, and then he threw the shot put remarkably well. So but in Sri Lanka, you might imagine how would an athlete with cerebral palsy or CP do such a thing. So we have gaps. So we have issues, because now recently the Ministry of Sports introduced the high performance concept under its newly formed Sports Council. So in athletics, we have 16 members as high performing athletes in the high performance team. But I am sure we have similar athletes, similar potential people living somewhere in Vaunia, Jaffna, Gaul, Ampara, Matara, Noreli, and so on. So far we have not discovered them, we have not met them. So talent identification is very important. So we have been having discussions with the Department of Social Services. So they have now, they are willing, we are very interested in partnering with us, with the NPC, and to do a talent identification. So, and then get them involved in the social services regional meets, and then get the shortlisted athletes to the closest sports club we have in the region. Because as you said, there are lots of issues with assistive devices, with the equipment. Because that's why we have not been able to continue wheelchair basketball, because we don't have the appropriate wheelchair for basketball. And then if you take prostheses, orthoses, then maybe other equipment such as sports equipment. So that's one problem that people are hesitant to take part in sport. So that's one. The other problem is the accessibility issues.
Exactly.
In the built environment, in transportation, and then also the attitudes. Attitudes also is a problem that
and also
we need
the social
to address.
stigma we have in about but now definitely these achievements made
Yes,
will
yes.
actually be an encouragement and motivation
Definitely.
for
Yes.
not only people with disabilities and also for other people to support them to participate in sports.
Correct.
So
Definitely.
I know you were a rugby player, and what's your personal experience in para sports?
No, before getting involved in para sports, after my rehabilitation, I was keen in doing some sports, getting involved in sports, because just before my injury, a long time ago, even just before my injury, I was doing some sports. So I was doing sports such as swimming and so on. But at school level, I was an athlete. So I did mainly the long distance events, and then also different times I did the short distance and also played some rugby. So that passion and that love for the sport kept growing even after my injury. So that's why I wanted to get involved, and then I started playing some basketball, Vicha basketball, and then we had some training camps, and then we established a few clubs, and then also introduced the game to a few other clubs, and then played some tournaments. And that's how I got involved in the para sport, first as a player for some time, for a few years, and then I had to take the burden of the administration role, because as you know, in Sri Lanka, there are only very few people who are there to mentor the sportsmen, do the admin part of the sport, then do promotions, then handle sports development and so on. So even it was a hasty decision that I had to give up doing sports. Otherwise, I was very keen in doing other sports as well, because before my injury, the sports which I did were like very tough, and then I had that endurance within me, endurance, fitness, agility, and so on. So that's how I got involved, and then after few years, I thought that I should get, help the athletes or the sportsmen to grow in the particular sport, and then I took up the role of sports promoter.
So like what will be your advice for the parents of children with disability and also for other persons with disability in Sri Lanka?
Yes, because now if they have, they need to have a dream. They need to have a dream, and then they need to have a particular target. Even especially if you take the parents of children who are still not independent, the parents should mentor them, the parents should guide them, the parents should educate them about sports, and it's a good thing to think big, but you need to start small, because overnight you cannot expect your child to go and win a medal at the Paralympics, because there are different other global games for the deaf, intellectual disabilities, because there's a particular competition called Special Olympics. So Special Olympics is only for intellectual disabilities. So when you take part in Special Olympic Games, whether you win or not, they reward you with different gifts, medals, and so on. So getting back to your own country, sometimes the parents wonder why don't the Paralympic Committee consider their child to take part in some other international event. So the education and the awareness is very important, because the global games is only a game to encourage the parents and children with intellectual disabilities to do some sort of sports. It's a non-competitive tournament, non-competitive, and as kind of a recreational sporting event.
Definitely.
So even the name Special Olympics, the Olympics Committee has requested them to use some other alternative name instead of Olympics, because sometimes the parents get the wrong interpretation that all because their child took part in a Special Olympic Games, why don't their child take part in the Asian Games or the Paralympic Games? So that's totally different. So the parents should first educate themselves, get involved with the NPC, with the social services, and get a good knowledge about the sporting disciplines, the criteria, regulations, and so on, and then educate their children and encourage them. So because not only to take part at international events, but even as a recreational activity for physical fitness purposes, it is essential that every children with a disability should do some kind of sports activity.
Definitely, so not only for competition level, their participation, the recreation also getting included in the society. Also, this is one way. The sports is another medium to sort of encourage that. So the parents, definitely that's a very good advice for the parents, because there are a lot of misunderstanding and stuff about the sports. They always think like it's a competitive. Definitely, it encourages their participation and sort of inclusion in the society. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Like, where can the parents get more information about these games? You said about the National Paralympic Committee, and you have a website and a Facebook page, also very active Facebook page.
Yes, we have the Facebook page where it is under own name, National Paralympic Committee, Sri Lanka National Paralympic Committee, and then we have the website which goes as www.npcsrilanka.lk, and then you can contact us on 2689-287, or get information about us through your closest social service officer, Department of Social Services, Special Education Units. They all have our contacts, or the Ministry of Education. So there are so many ways that you can contact us easily, but in the future, you'll be able to contact us digitally, because we'll be improving our digital assets, and then get closer to the community as much as possible.
That will be great, because people from other remote areas also, they can sort of, rather than traveling, or it will be difficult for them, they can get all the information digitally, which is a very, very good thing.
Because we have been promoting sports in Batiklo, Vaunia, Kilinochi, especially the north and east provinces. So we have found good athletes living there. So they established their own sports clubs. So they now take part in our athletic championships as well. So we don't want to stop from there. We want to still continue. And then, because as we discussed, we have a lot of infrastructure problems, transportation, accessibility, about devices, issues of devices, especially people living outside of the Western province. So that we will think very carefully and then work alongside the Department of Social Services to get them involved.
Yeah,
And
not only the responsibility of the social service and the NPC, definitely it's the responsibility of the other organizations and corporates in Sri Lanka as well to support particularly people with disabilities in sports and encourage them.
Yes.
Because it's
Yes.
end of the day, it's a honor and a pride for all of us
That's right.
when there are achievements made like this. So it's that's joining hands and helping the NP, because NPC alone it will be very difficult for NPC to sort of support and to organize and everything. So the organization should join hands with the NPC to support them, to encourage more participation, more. So we'll see more medals, like the tally will increase every year, so which will be very important thing for Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for all the information. It was a very, very interesting interview with you. I actually learned a lot from this one, because it's not only for the parents of children with disabilities, also for persons with disability and even the society, so that they can encourage the persons with disability to participate in sports. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.